President Sargsyan, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on SBS this evening.
Well, it's my pleasure.
First of all, can I ask you to bring us up to date with the conflict? There are reports that the town of Shushi has fallen. What is the Armenian response to those reports?
Well, the Armenian response to those reports are that there are battles going inside Shushi, and a big part of the Azeri forces have been pushed out from Shushi. So the battle continues. I do understand that in Azerbaijan, getting even inside Shushi has been considered as the greatest victory, and we're celebrating that. Well, I'm in a position to say that this is not going to be the end of the war, unfortunately. Taking over one city or another village doesn't make that the war is finished. And in fact, all wars, they finish at the negotiating table. They don't finish at battlefields. And Shushi was taken during the first war in Karabakh, early 90s. Shushi was taken over by Azeris, and then it was taken over by Armenians. So it doesn't mean anything. The sad news is that the war continues.
It's a setback, though, no? And it's a setback, surely, that you seem to be losing a lot of the territory that you gained in the war in the early 90s.
Well, first of all, it's not me or we, it's the people and the Republic of Artsakh. You have to just make the difference between the two. Armenia is not in war with Azerbaijan, or indeed is not in war with Turkey. It's the people of Nagorno-Karabakh that claimed their independence from Azerbaijan after around 70 years of being under Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic by the great decision, in brackets of course, of Comrade Stalin when he gave Armenian territory that was always a part of Armenia for thousands of years, not for 70 years, for thousands of years. He gave that to Azerbaijan. He was great master of divide and rule. So he created not only this conflict in the Soviet Union, but many places. But the Armenians learned the lesson that there was no way that they can be happy inside Soviet Azerbaijan with the protection of Soviet government. And the end of Soviet Union in 1988, Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, so they were an autonomous region, they voted for getting out from Soviet Azerbaijan according to the rules of Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union rules allowed the nations and the states to get out from Soviet Union without any barriers. But the response from Azerbaijan was just brutal, killings in Baku, Sumgait, and then a war against Nagorno-Karabakh.
The history, of course, is extremely complicated, and neither side can agree on exactly that. But I think the point that we're trying to reach here is that you do give the Nagorno-Karabakh support. We have seen that in this conflict.
We do, yeah. We do, definitely we do. The history is not complicated, Brian. The history is quite simple. Armenians are living, and if you go to Nagorno-Karabakh or Republic of Artsakh, you'll find a historic remnant starting more than 2,000 years ago, churches that come from the 3rd and 4th century. There were no Azeris, there were no Turks at that time in the whole region. I mean, this is as simple as that. I mean, the Turks and Seljuks came to that area starting from 8th, later 9th or 10th century. So the history is as simple as that. And during all the histories of 2,000 of years, Armenia, Nagorno-Karabakh was never a part of Azerbaijan, never. It was a part of Persian Empire, had relations, Russian Empire, and then in Soviet Union. That's about the history.
But as far as the international community is concerned, it is part of Azerbaijan.
Well, because I think international community is concerned because I think in each case that has the complexity of this one should be considered separately. Should not be taken as granted or should not be used the cliche of having, okay, we do this. And then at the end of your own country, Brian, you are from Scotland. In UK, the Scottish people expressed their desire to have a referendum for their freedom. Am I right?
Yes.
And what was the response of London? Do they send army to kill Scots? They used to do from England several hundred years ago, with Middle Ages. But the referendum was allowed. The referendum was allowed, and the people voted. I mean, in that case, the referendum, they didn't vote for being independent from UK, but they expressed their wish. Well, in the case of Nagorno-Karabakh, what's the difference between people of Nagorno-Karabakh, again mountainous people, and people of Scotland? Why on earth, when the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, having this huge history, expressed their wish to become independent, the response was killing?
Let's bring it back to today.
Because Azerbaijan behaves like a medieval country.
But let's bring it back to today. And there are reports that the fighting is such that the Turkish and the Russians had discussions over the weekend, and that you are on the brink of agreeing to a ceasefire deal that you would never have contemplated before, that involves the territories around Nagorno-Karabakh and you leaving those territories. Are those reports true?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that I am the president of Parliamentary Republic. And that means the negotiations with Azerbaijan used to be, the last 2.5 years, used to be run by Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, not by me. And the war is, the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is fought by the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, Republic of Artsakh, is supported by my government. So the government is responsible for these negotiations, including with Russia, and Russia being the mediator to put the sides together. I hope that Russia will succeed and we will have a ceasefire.
But what you're...
After ceasefire, it's very important, Brian, okay? I mean, I think the reporters, journalists are talking about this territory, that territory. I mean, at the first war, there were not that territories that were occupied or, as they say, or freed by Armenian side. Now, this is not about territory, Brian. This is about people, about their lives, about their future, about their children, about families. When you simplify the whole conflict into just a territorial game, you are playing, not you, of course, because I'm not complaining you, the international community or a lot of journalists are simplifying the story and basically supporting the idea of Azerbaijan or Turkey. For Turkey and Azerbaijan, this is pure ethnic cleansing, basically taking over a territory. And that's why the whole hype is about territory. We took this, we took that. And they say we have freed it. Freed from whom? From those people that have been living there for thousands of years? From a territory that were never even under Soviet Union, there were no Azeris living. That's called ethnic cleansing, Brian.
And I think those accusations have been made on both sides. Can I just pin you down here? Would you be prepared? Would you be prepared to remove Armenians from the border area, from those areas around Nagorno-Karabakh, as some sort of deal that is being negotiated at the moment? Would you be willing to do that? Because that has always been part of the Madrid Principles, and yet we've never seen the Madrid Principles enacted upon.
Well, let me take you back again into history, but now 26 years of history, which is after the ceasefire, when the negotiations started around the table with the Minsk group of the OSCE, Minsk group, and that negotiations were co-chaired by 3 countries, US, France, representing Europe, and Russia. I mean, this is important. For more than 20 years, negotiations were going on. And they were doing a lot of hard work, the two sides, because a complex story, complex issue that this conflict, you cannot resolve that in 1 year or 2 years. It takes time. Look at the other conflicts.
But surely not 26 years. This is why we've got this flare.
I'm sorry, Brian. Who said that 26? Look at the Palestinian issue. How long you are negotiating? Look at that East Timor. How long you were negotiating, and so on and so forth. Look at, if not the will of United Europe and United States of America, what would have happened to the conflicts in Balkans? I mean, you would have another 100 years of negotiating. These are complex issues, and more than 20 years, they have achieved a lot there. They have discussed and resolved a lot of details and all of that stuff. Of course, these negotiations were confidential. What they achieved towards the end, I mean, a couple of years ago, was what was remaining just a couple of key issues that should have been resolved. I mean, issues that would have needed on both sides political will and the compromise, or the will of compromise. So a lot of work has been done. I think just saying that nothing has happened is not the right thing to say, right? Because a lot was achieved, and the peace process was on until the moment that Azerbaijan decided on the 27th of September that they don't want to negotiate, they want to go for war. But even this war eventually will take the parties to the table of negotiations. Very simple. The wars, they don't resolve conflicts.
I think
at the end of the day, you have to sit down around the table and negotiate it.
How important is a ceasefire to you? Would you be willing to, as the Russians and the Turks are talking about now, to get out of those areas around Nagorno-Karabakh in order to spare more lives being lost?
Okay, 2 points on your question, Brian. Point number one. Indeed, ceasefire is important, because if not the ceasefire, we will have another day, then another day, and another day of more killings of young lives of soldiers. So who is killed there? It's a young life on both sides. I mean, a life that should have been an architect, an artist, or a mathematician, or a physicist, they are gone, they are lost. And another family getting a tragedy forever. So ceasefire is important, because killing and war is unhuman. That's number one. Now on negotiating, I think this is amazing, and it's a fact. What your question is showing the complexity of today's war, because the real negotiator should have been only Russia, because it's only Russia that has good relations both with Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Do you still trust Russia?
Turkey is a part of the war. They are fully supporting with military, with equipment, with weapons, with drones, with their F-16s and everything. So how on earth they can be a mediator? The mediator is Russia. But Russia has to deal with Turkey as a side.
And do you still trust Russia? Because it looks like you have lost Russian support for their continued occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh. Do you still trust Russia to come up with a deal that you can sell to your own people?
Well, first of all, it's not me, and I'm telling you for the second time, Brian. It's my government. I'm head of the state. I'm not the head of the government. So your question is turned to my prime minister and my government. I can readdress you to them, but let me try to answer you since we are seeing each other. So the question is that Russia was never involved in the conflict of Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenia and Russia are strategic partners, but only Republic of Armenia and Russian Federation. It was never about Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh people were fighting on their own, with the support of Armenians, volunteers from Armenia, from diaspora, from everywhere. But they were on their own. Russia was not a part of this conflict. Russia was not the patron of this process, never. And that is why it makes Russia sort of a mediator that both sides can trust. If Russia was involved in Nagorno-Karabakh, how could Azerbaijan trust them to be a mediator? Like we don't trust Turkey. Turkey cannot be a mediator. Russia is dealing with Turkey because Turkey is now sitting in Azerbaijan openly, sort of having huge presence, sort of occupying Azerbaijan politically and militarily. So that's why Russians have to deal with them, not because they are an impartial mediator. No, not at all. So Russia was never involved in there. That's why we can trust Russia.
Why is Russia teaming up with Turkey now? I mean, this is an interesting, because this is the last thing that you wanted, but it seems that you're going to have to accept a deal that the two of those bring forward.
I don't believe that your expression of Russia is which word that you used?
They're talking to each other. Erdogan and Putin. They spoke this weekend.
No. Of course they have to talk. Not only this way. From the beginning of this war, they are talking to each other, because it's the same thing that talking to Erdogan about events in Syria. And Turkish army has invaded and broken the territorial integrity of Syria. It's the same as speaking to Turkey about Iraq, because they have broken territorial integrity of Iraq and they are in Iraq. It's the same as speaking to Erdogan about Libya, because the guy is there. Where is Libya? Well, where is Libya? Where is Turkey? Why the Turkish forces and their terrorists are in Libya? Why the terrorists are in Azerbaijan? Because Azerbaijan has allowed it to happen, and Russia or anybody, including NATO or international community, have to deal with this behavior of Turkey being a member of NATO and getting involved in a war that doesn't have anything to do with NATO. And Russia, of course, has to speak to them. Anybody has to speak. UN has to now to speak about Nagorno-Karabakh to Turkey, because they are a big source of instability all around themselves, including Nagorno-Karabakh.
You talk about the power of Turkey and of Azerbaijan. 26 years this stalemate has gone on for, and in that time you have seen Azerbaijan and Turkey rise up and become major powers. The money that Azerbaijan has now is incredible in comparison to 20 years ago. Is this a spectacular failure of democracy on your part? Why didn't you try to negotiate this from a position of strength in the early 90s rather than this position of weakness now?
Well, I think you are raising a question that probably you and I will need another 2 hours or 3 to discuss about the change of the global politics. I mean, you are referring 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the world was a singular polar world, and it was the United States were the superpower worldwide. The Soviet Union had collapsed. The international community that the UN, European organization, NATO's were the trusted partners for everybody. Okay? Then this is the time that the ceasefire was signed in '94 between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Nagorno-Karabakh, and I referred to it, and Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijan signed the ceasefire with Nagorno-Karabakh, i.e. they recognize that they are a party. Now, point number 2 here. Since then, Armenians, rightly or wrongly, believed in international law. And when Azerbaijan started building the pipeline from Baku towards Tbilisi and Ceyhan, the first oil pipeline, Armenians didn't bomb it. This was 20 years ago. If Armenians would start a war then, Armenia's army was more powerful, as you are referring, than Azeri army, and they would just stop the pipeline to be built. And what would have been Azerbaijan? Let me finish it, Brian. What would have been Azerbaijan without the oil billions? Nothing. And this war would never happen. But somehow Armenians believe that if they are building their pipeline, it is under international law, and at the end of the day, the international community, and because we were negotiating in a format that included OSCE, United Nations, United States, Russia, and France. So maybe we were wrong believing that international law will be applied. Now, after 30 years, this is a different world. There is no superpower. Everything is uncertain. Everything is unpredictable. And you can have, in this ocean of politics, you can have pirates like Turkey. I mean, behaving like pirates everywhere. So in 30 years, the world has changed. And maybe you are right. We misjudged, we as a nation, I mean, not we as someone. Well, I didn't probably, because I have even my own theory, and I even wrote a book of quantum politics of 21st century, predicting all of this, what is happening in the world. But the fact is, maybe we misjudged, believing that we still live in the classical world, that the international law, international community, that someone from Washington will pick up a phone and call the president of Turkey or the chief of staff of Turkey and put a restriction on them. Well, it doesn't work like that now. The world has changed.
Talking about Washington, and we are running out of time, so I'll make this one of my last questions. But we now obviously see a change of administration in Washington. Obviously, Donald Trump was maybe a little bit less interested in these things than Joe Biden. Do you expect or hope that America will begin to play a more active role in the region now?
Well, you know, there is always a hope when there's a change in a major actor like the United States. It was initially the actor, 30 years ago or 25 years ago. Now it's one of the major actors. It's always an excitement, and everybody has a hope that their own position will be changed for better. The whole world, because America has interests worldwide. Now, I know Mr. Biden very well. I know him from previous administration. We know each other. We met recently this year when he was not even a candidate for presidency. I hope that this government will, in this administration in Washington, will start looking at the forgotten by them conflicts and problems worldwide. Not by going and interfering, but trying to play the role that the international community or people like Armenia and the region are waiting from them, to be the ones that will bring peace and prosperity rather than basically making it more unstable and more unpredictable. And from that point of view, I think there is a lot that we have to work. But will it happen today or tomorrow? Of course not. It will take several months until the new administration will be organized in Washington, but the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh is happening today. I wish U.S. administration will go back to their policies of bringing control, predictability, and stability worldwide, and contributing to peace and life rather than destruction.
If I can finally ask you, you are a statesman. You know that conflicts like this are resolved by statesmen taking gambles, making big gestures to try and put an end to this. What's your big idea for resolving this crisis?
My big idea to that? I have several of them, but I will not tell you. The moment ceasefire is there and there's a chance meeting with the president of Azerbaijan, I will tell him the big idea. But the biggest idea is very simple. There is no war in the world that you can resolve with a weapon. It doesn't exist. Eventually, you have to sit down and negotiate and agree with something, because otherwise, France and Germany would be in war today. France and UK would be in war today. Scotland and England would be in war today. And at the end of the day, I think if you take unresolved conflicts, I put aside numerous conflicts worldwide, I will take the Armenian genocide story. 105 years ago, in the same Ottoman Empire by Turkish government, genocide of Armenians was exercised. 1.5 million people killed. A lot of them worldwide, including your own country in Australia. Armenians in Australia, they didn't come like from Ireland or from Scotland. They came to Australia mostly after the genocide. So is that war over or not? Well, or conflict? The answer is no. After 105 years and more 4 or 5 generations of people that have changed, Armenians still remember the genocide, and that conflict is not resolved. The new target for Armenians is recognition of genocide, and maybe later will be more, and that will never be over until the government of Turkey will recognize the genocide, which is an unhuman thing to do, and will sit down with Armenians and negotiate how to live together. If they don't know, if they will not do that, that will continue another 100 years. And that's amazing, because this is who we are as humans.
So you have ideas that will resolve this conflict that are not based on the Madrid principles and that will actually go from being paper to action because there's been too much stalemate?
Well, any idea, you cannot come with an idea when there is the noise of war, Brian. I think the noise of war has to be stopped. Then you can discuss the ideas. Well, I have ideas because that's my character, Brian. I have ideas also for the world, how we should be run, not only for Nagorno-Karabakh, because I analyze and I see this world, and I do believe that we have entered a new world, completely new world, unpredictable, unstable, interconnected, very fast. And we don't understand this new world. And because we don't understand, we are in panic. We have the feeling of unpredictability. And because we don't understand, we think that our main problem is coronavirus. And whatever we see in economy or political changes and pressures is because of coronavirus. No, Brian. Coronavirus is a consequence. What is the real reason is the changed world. Is this world is dramatically different than the one that we had 50 years ago. The moment we realize that we live in a new world, and this world is different, and the laws are, that's why I use the word quantum, to show people how different is this new world, as how different was the classical mechanics from quantum mechanics. Because you cannot describe the elementary particles with classical physics. You have to create a new philosophy, a new logic in order to start. This is what the great giants, starting from Einstein, Max Planck, and others did. So we have to reset worldwide thinking. And there are more and more people now that agree with this, what I'm telling you. That the world has changed dramatically, and we are on the crossroad between the old and the new. And between the old and the new, of course, we'll see a lot of pirate behavior because it's a crossroad. There are no rules. There are no the old rules, they don't work. The new rules are not in place. So Turkey can do it. But will it resolve its own issues? I don't believe so. Look at Turkish economy. 20 years ago, it was one of the most attractive places for international investors to invest. Now every international investor is getting out from Turkey. Their economy is going down. Their lira is going down. As an example, Armenian dram is absolutely stable during all of this happening. Turkey, where is Turkish lira? It looks like that Turkey is in war and Armenia is not. So Turkey is going to face huge problems because all of these conflicts are going to backfire. And you can put a list of reasons why Mr. Erdogan went into war in Libya. One of the reasons is energy, because he's suffering. The second one is to bully Europe, because Libya is the gate for refugees. He has another 4 million bullying Europe on the border with Europe. And Europe pays them 6 billion euros in order to keep that refugees. Because 4 million refugees coming into Europe, and absolute majorities of these refugees are from Syria. And who is the creator of instability in Syria? Turkey. So they create the instability, they take the refugees, now they bully Europe. They will bully Europe tomorrow with energy, because they will control the energy going from Caspian to Europe, from Azerbaijan.
We'll have to leave it there, President Sarkisian. I'm running out of time, and I have a colleague who would like to ask you a few questions in Armenian. I thank you very much indeed for your time, and I hope that you do achieve some success in the negotiations that take place over the next few days.
Well, the most important thing to get a peace, Brian, to save lives, human lives.
Thank you very much
for your interview.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.